Hello, in this video we're going to go over beginning to end, how to make this super cute Queen of Hearts floppy hat. Now to make this hat, the tools we're going to be using is the 110 peg, 1/4 inch gauge, adult, women's small or youth large loom from premiumknittinglooms.com, Cindy Wood Looms. You'll need your loom tool, crochet hook, and a pair of scissors. You'll need some stitch markers, which for this project I just actually used little rubber bands.
Okay, so we've got our white yarn. We're going to do a chain cast on. Alright, and to do a chain cast on, we got a slip knot. You're on your working yarn behind the first peg. You pull it through that slip knot. I have to bring it down here. The first one's always the hardest. Okay, you make your slip knot. Make sure it slips the right direction. Yes. The white peg is our peg 1. So we take it behind, pull that working yarn through, you tighten it and it makes a new loop. Now, your cast on string, you just throw it behind. You don't have to worry about anchoring it or anything. So from here, all you do is you take that loop, put it behind the next peg, and pull your working yarn through. Try to hold this so it's easier for you to see. So you just made a new loop, you put it behind the next peg, pull your working yarn, pull the working yarn through and tighten it. If you need more help learning how to do the chain cast on, I do have other videos that will go over and teach you how to do this. So you're going to do this chain cast on all the way around, and when you get to your very last peg, you just put the loop on it. I'll show you. Put the loop on it like that, on the last peg, and you tighten it. Go ahead and do that all the way around. The brim of this hat is going to be done with a single rib stitch. Now I'm going to be using the E-wrap knit stitch instead of the reverse purl knit stitch, just because we are using a worsted weight yarn on a 1/4 gauge loom. So you can see I've already done one. I E-wrapped one, I purled one, then you E-wrap one, purl one. You gotta watch out, your cast on edge is going to be kind of tight. But you just E-wrap one, purl one all the way around, and you just keep that same pattern going. You'll do it all the way around, then you'll go around and take off all the E-wrap stitches. You'll take the bottom over the top for them. And then once everything has one peg left on it, one loop left on each peg, then you'll go back around and do a second row. Your E-wrap pegs will still be E-wrap pegs. Your purl pegs will still be purl pegs. Do this for about 10 rows. Okay, we have our 10 rows of the single rib stitch done in the white. Now, just going to take all that yarn, sit that to the middle, so this yarn's coming to the inside. And then, let me make sure I get the center pull. There we go. I'm going to use our red yarn. You want the tail of it going to the inside as well, but we're going to wrap it around. See, we're wrapping it around so that it stays in place. Now for this part, we're going to E-wrap our first row all the way around and take your bottom loops over the top. Once that first row of red is done, then you're going to pick up your white string and you're going to wrap every 4th peg. So you'll have a peg wrap and you'll have 3 in between. Now when you get back to the beginning, there's not an even number of pegs to keep doing that, so you'll just run it to that last one. If your tension's loose enough, see mine's not, you can go ahead and pull that over and hold it. I'm just going to tie it there until I get to it. Then you're going to pick up your red string, and to keep from having a seam, it is best to just do the E-wrap one peg at a time. And when you get to the white ones, just go ahead and pull them over and E-wrap all the way around. You're going to be doing this pattern every other row. So you're going to have a row of red, then you'll have a row where every fourth peg is white, then you'll do another row of red, and I'll show you what the design is on the next. Okay, so after your first, you do one row of red, and then for your second row, you start with this white peg right here, and every fourth peg you wrap with the white, and then the rest you do in the red, and then you do a whole row of red. That's why this is a complete row of red. Now, the second part, we're still wrapping every fourth peg, but we want to offset. So right here, remember we stopped. Right here was our last peg that we wrapped, so the yarn was coming from this peg. So as you're doing this, the end of the white isn't always going to end here. It's going to kind of move back, and that's perfectly fine. You just got to remember this last set right here is kind of jacked up. So you want to skip one peg. You can see right here is where this is where the yarn was coming from, right there. So you want to skip one peg and then wrap the peg. And then you're going to run it over here because this was the peg that was wrapped. So you skip a peg, wrap a peg. And you can look and see that was the one that was wrapped. So skip and wrap, because if you look behind it, you can see the white. Or once you get it going from this first white peg, you can just count every four and wrap until you are to the end. And then you will do the red again. You will go around and fill in with the red, which I suggest doing it one peg at a time. I'm just wrapping a few so you can sort of see the design. Now this is going to offset these little white dots, and these white dots are going to be single stitches, and those single stitches are going to resemble hearts. So that's why we are doing this. So that's how the set is going to be. It'll be one row of red, one row of red and white, where the white is every four, and you're going to rotate it. It'll be every four, or if you're counting from the white peg, it'll be peg number 3. See, 1, 2, 3. Then every four after that, or it's going to be peg 1, and then peg 5, and every four after that. Of course, all of this is wrote up with charts and graphs and everything in the PDF. But we are going to do this rotation 5 times, and then we're going to switch to another technique. Once you are done with that part, you have done 11 rows altogether. So, and this is what it's looking like. As you can see, the stitches, it just looks like little white hearts with a red background. At this point, just cut the red yarn, and we're only going to be working with the white yarn for this next section. Now the next section is not creating hearts with color, it's creating hearts with texture. And to do this, of course the PDF does have a much easier chart to read than this one. Oh, that's upside down. But as you can see, we're going to be doing right side up hearts and upside down hearts. You can make your own chart. You can go by my charts. These are all the hearts are supposed to be filled in. I just got tired of trying to fill them in and wanted to just go ahead and get started on it. But this is what we're doing because it's 100. Excuse me, it's 110 peg loom. So the numbers go from 1 to 110. That's every peg on this loom. And then this is going to be a 11 row project altogether. The hearts themselves will take up 9 rows, and then we'll have one plain row beginning and end. So I've already got started with, I just E-wrapped a whole row of white and went ahead and took the bottoms over the tops, and I've already marked my pegs too. I'm out of stitch markers. They're on other projects, so I just got the rubber bands. I didn't have enough stitch markers, but I do have kids, so I've got stitch markers, and I marked, I think it's every 11, let me see. I started with the white peg as peg 1, so row 1, and I'm marking the center point of each heart. So from there I marked peg 6, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And this is a point down heart, so I marked it with a light color, so I used yellow. And then from that, from 6 to 17 is 11 pegs to the center of the point up heart. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And I marked it with a darker color. I used red. So then every 11 pegs after that, I rotate back because the hearts go up and down. So this would be point up, point down, point up, point down, point up, point down, point up, point down. Now this purple one right here, wait, no, that's a point down. Sorry, point up. Here it is. This blue one right here is a different color than the rest, and it's wrapped on there differently. It's just because my white string, I didn't want to cut the white and then start it back at my beginning peg. So I actually just started it where it was, and this is where it was at. So that's how that marks the beginning of each row. Now to do this, the empty blocks, we're going to E-wrap. The ones that are part of the heart, which this empty section here will be part of the heart as well, just like these two, I'm going to purl. So how I would do this is I'm E-wrapping, and let me see, this is a point up heart, and as you can see, technically where I'm starting right now is like right here. So here's our middle peg. So the middle peg and the two beside it are fine, but these two I need to purl. This first time around, some of these are going to be very tight, so you just got to kind of work with it. So there's the purl. Alright, now you might have to take, see, to loosen that stitch up, I'm going to have to go ahead and knit these off. There we go. So that one was purled, and this one is purled. These three, are going to be E-wrapped because they're that center part of the heart. Then these two will be purled, but we'll go ahead and knit those off. And it does actually help with your tension if you knit these off as you go. And you're less likely to have laddering happen, which I always wanted to call it a pull or a seam. Those are actually different things. Laddering is when your starts and stops are in the same part and you end up with an area. I'll grab something to show you. Alright, let me see. This hat, it's not super noticeable, but I could show you on it. Okay. See this line? You're going to see a line all the way through here. That's thicker. Well, the line itself's thinner. It's farther apart than the rest of them. That goes all the way up because I just did straight E-wrap. I know on the black it's very hard to see, but that is referred to as laddering. Okay, but that's all you do. You follow your chart. If it's an X, remember all these hearts are filled in. And ignore these lines separating them, that's for another section. If it's in the heart shape, it's a purl stitch. If it's outside the heart shape, it's an E-wrap stitch. And you go around, you do want to use a row counter for this part because it's kind of hard to tell your stitches apart at first until it gets down farther. Sometimes I'm doing a project that involves collar work, I won't really do a row counter just because I can see by my previous stitches. This one's a little harder to do. So go ahead, you did one row of white, and then you're going to have 9 rows of your pattern and one more row of white. And then we'll show you what to do. After you've done your heart chart, if you're using this one or whatever chart you're using, I went ahead and did 3 rows. 1 red, 1 white, and then the last one red. Just to kind of give a border between the next part. You can see how it's coming down now. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow the same chart, but instead of changing colors, instead of doing texture changes, we're going to be changing colors. And I want to do it the opposite of the previous set. So if you use darker colors to represent point up hearts, this time they're going to be point down hearts. And the same if you use lighter colors for point down hearts, now they're going to be point up hearts. This is where these lines come in play. I'm actually going to do colored squares, and the heart will be a different color. So this will be, a white square with a red heart, red square with a white heart, white square with a red heart, red square with a white heart, so on and so forth. To set this up, we're going to do one row where we're alternating our red and our whites. Now we need to know how wide these squares are. So they are 11 pegs wide is how wide each square is. Now you can do your colors whichever way you want. I want my hearts that are pointing down, we'll do those hearts red. So before, this was a point up heart. You can see it right there. It might not be showing too well quite yet. So this will be a point down heart, and we want the background for this to be white. So we need, 5 pegs from each side of the mark. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So right here is my yarn. We need this to be white. So I'm actually going to run this. We're going to run this on top of the red yarn, so that the red is underneath. And recount. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we're going to E-wrap 11 pegs. But you see these strings down here, these are called floats. That is what goes from one color to another color. That's the inside. If we leave these really long, then we will end up with, let me see if this hat has it. These ones I worked in. But you'll end up with really, really long floats that you can catch very easily. You can leave it like that, or you can hook them in. If you want to hook your floats in, do a few pegs. Okay, which one of these is the tail? This is the tail where I added it, so we're going to ignore that. But you will E-wrap a few of your pegs. Typically, for most projects, if I'm tagging my floats up, honestly, anything more than 3 pegs, I will pull them up. But this one, I went like 4 pegs, and that seemed to do fine. I want to do a little higher up here. So what you do is you just take the secondary color and just twist it one time. And then you can let it go. That's going to hold that. It's going to kind of like tack that up there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now we need to switch our colors. And to switch our colors, you run the new color on top of the old one. That will kind of help hold that down. See? As you're wrapping. 3. And I will go ahead and anchor the white. I'm pulling it under and twisting it over. That will hold that in place. Oops. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Which, if this is how I'm remembering which ones to wrap. I'm going by my marked pegs. you have your marked peg, and you wrap 5 on each side of it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright, so you do this all the way around until you get back to your beginning. Alright, that row is done. As you can see, the floats are a lot longer. Some of them go, they all go 5 to 6 pegs before they are tied in. You can tie them in shorter distances if you want. I do want to leave a note though about doing the picture knitting like this. One tip so that it will turn out better is you want your background color to be darker than the foreground color. The reason is if you use, I have another one of these hats, it's actually one I always wear. The white is the background color and the black is the texture color. Now with this hat, the white is actually a thicker yarn, so you would think that it would show the floats less, but it actually shows them more, just because the black wants to show through the white. So just a little tip. So as I'm doing this, unless it is my first or last, unless it's like my first or my last row, I'm not going to tie in the floats in the white squares. If I'm working on a white piece, I'm not going to tie in the red floats, if that makes sense. Okay, so to do this, same concept as before where you switch your stitches, but in the place of doing a knit stitch and a purl stitch, it's all going to be your E-wrap knit stitch, obviously, but the X's are going to be different colors. Of course, the graph in the PDF is a lot better than this one, but this will at least let you know how to do it. Alright, so this is a white square. In our white squares, the only peg, this is going to be a white square. In the white square, I'm going to do the red hearts in the white squares. So I can go all the way around the loom and wrap just that middle peg in the white squares. The red squares, here, this row 1, these are the ones I will be wrapping. So let me show you. White square. Now the red square, you are going to be wrapping, oh, okay. Sorry, I grabbed an end. There we go. Got the right thing. Okay, this is the marked peg, so that's the white square. Now red square, the marked pegs we will leave out, which it's knit 2, empty 2, knit 3, 1, 2, 3, empty 2, knit 2. So this right here, this is how your first round is going to look. So knit 2, empty 2, knit 3, empty 2, knit 2, knit the center. You do this all the way around, and then you go back in with your white and you just fill in every empty peg. Now for the most part, you don't have long floats. There's only one row that you'll consistently have long floats, and that's row 5. And still that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 9 pegs. You can tie them in or you can leave them. This is up higher in the hat, so for me, I'm just going to leave them at this point. I'm not going to tie them in. I don't really want them to show through. And since I am using white, the white sections are more likely to show it through. But there will be some parts of it I will tie them in so you can see the difference. So at this point, you go ahead and do this whole chart. And then your last row will again be the white and the red. You know, whatever color square is, we'll do that color. And then we're going to go ahead and do 3 rows. A red row, a white row, and a red row, a white row, then a red row. Sorry. Alright, at this point, we've got our hearts done. And it's hard to tell, but I've got the 3 rows here, the red, white, and the red. I went ahead and cut the red yarn and put it to the side for now. You can leave it if you want, but I'd rather not have the string going like this. But you can see I didn't tack in my floats extra. And that's how they turned out. It'll shrink up more as it gets down farther. But let you see how good the hearts turned out on the outside. At this point, we're going to use that heart band as the middle point of our hat. We're going to repeat this pattern, and we're going to repeat this pattern. And then instead of a single rib, we're going to finish off with a double rib. But I'll show you how to do that. Just go ahead and redo this part and this part just the exact same way.
Alright, so we are ready to cast this hat off. Now there was something I wanted to tell you. I wanted to show you. This is a 110 peg loom, and it's divisible by 2, but it is not equally divisible by 4. So, where's my string? Oh, here it is. As you'll notice, these 2 ribs right here are a little bigger. I E-wrap 3 at the beginning of the row, then purl 2, E-wrap 2, purl 2, E-wrap 2, but all the way around, and then the last 3 are purled. See, 1, 2, 3. It's really not going to be noticeable on the top of the hat, but I had to do that so that it would be as even as possible. Okay, so to do our cast off, wrap your working yarn. Of course, I've got a knot in mine. Wrap your working yarn around the loom 3 times and cut. Okay, so we are ready to take our hat off the loom. Take your working yarn, wrap around the loom 3 times and cut, just so that you have enough to do this whole cast off. Now this double rib stitch, of course it was knit 2, purl 2. The loom's 110 pegs, so it's not equally divisible by 4. And I didn't think to mention this earlier. So what you want to do is, I did, of course, my knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2 all the way around. When I got to the end, I did it was a purl 2. If I would have done knit 2, I would have had 4 all together that were knitted, and you would have left a big ridge. So what I did, and you can do this for any project where it ends up like this, because sometimes it does. Instead of, I purled 3 and then knit 1, and then the next row starts with knit 2. So it's purl 3 and knit 3 right beside each other, and then you go into the knit 2, purl 2 all the way around. You can see the ridge is a little wider, but it's not really going to be noticeable. Okay, so to do this cast off, what we are doing is we are going to take and pull the working yarn, and there's quite a bit of it. Pull it through 2 pegs. Then we're going to run it behind 2 pegs. Run it through 2 pegs. And then take it behind 2 pegs. Do that all the way around. Once you get back to where you started, you're going to go through 2, and you're going to notice that you're back at your beginning where these 2 are already done. You're just going to skip those, and you'll be picking up all the ones that you didn't get. You're just doing the same thing until every single peg on the loom has yarn going through it. Then take your hook, just like this, and take everything off the loom, and I'll show you what to do from there. Alright, we have it off the loom. Put the loom to the side. This is what we got. Now, at this point, all we do is tighten up this pull string. But since it went around 2 times, it takes a little bit of work to get it to tighten up the way you want it to. And you have to be very careful, because you do not want to break this cast on string. So I kind of pull at it some and then loosen it up, because what that does is that gets rid of a lot of this bulk, this extra yarn that's running through. And you have to be careful, because doing this can make the strands, the yarn itself, weak. But I'll show you what it's doing. See these loops up here? It's pulling all those out. So you keep pulling at that Actually, here's a good picture. You can see here's the one strand going through and there's the second. So you do that until it all pulls up tight, and then you tie that off. Now when pulling this close, you want to make sure you don't pull too hard and break your string, because if you do, that is something that's really difficult to fix. So it's very, very bulky at this top. If you're having trouble with getting that to want to close all the way, you can just thread a tapestry needle and pull through and actually take and sew this hole closed. Let me flip this inside out. Just take and just go back and forth and just sew the whole thing closed, and then just tie it off and you're done. But this is what the hat looks like. See, this will leave, of course, we'll sew that closed. Your top is going to be flat, and then you have all the texture of the different hearts and everything with it. Alright, so there you go. I hope you enjoyed this video. Remember, the video is made to go with the PDF, so the PDF will have some changes in it that will adjust this pattern for a couple other looms. Any questions or comments, please leave in the comment section below, or you can email me. My email is in the description as well. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.